Hi, my name is Emma Bufalini. I'm a massage therapist and I currently own Emalani Massage Therapy. We are doing a couples class for massage. We're teaching you some basic techniques and some body mechanics in order for you to work on your partner comfortably and easily. We're just gonna give you some information that's really gonna change the way that you approach massage. And it's gonna teach you some things that will help you to do massage without hurting your own body while you're trying to be kind and loving to another partner. Now, all of this is done clothed. We're wearing very loose clothing, mostly t-shirts and like basketball shorts, so you can do this with a friend as well. Nothing in here is going to get across any boundaries. We're gonna stay nice and professional the whole time, and you don't even need any special equipment either. We're gonna be working on a chair as well as on the floor with a blanket and a pillow. So it's a pretty easy class. It's an introductory class that anybody can do. So this is part 1 of 2. The first part is gonna be chair massage, where we're sitting in an actual chair, and I'm gonna be working on the person with me who's sitting in the chair. I have a little stool that helps me approach the massage from a couple different angles while I'm working on it, and we're gonna show you some ways to work on the arms, the legs, and a little bit of back scoops as well as the neck. So you're gonna get some approaches from different angles of the body and different areas of the body that will help you to kind of address the person overall. In the couples class, one of the first things you're gonna do is you're gonna get comfortable with standing by your partner by, being where you're at. Don't lock your knees. Don't like push them back. A lot of people will do that where they lock their knees back and they push their butt out. It causes you to lean forward and lose a lot of your ability to push. So what you wanna do is bend your knees. You wanna kind of get a wide stance like that. Being behind your partners, rest your hands on them. And we're gonna start with the neck. So one of the things you're gonna do is, instead of pushing with your arms, we're not using our arm strength today, we're gonna lean forward on them. So you notice my arms bend a little bit, my body comes forward, and his body moves with me a little bit towards the camera. I'm not pushing with my arms, I'm just relaxing them there, leaning forward. Now you can do this with a couple different ways. For those who have any wrist or hand pain, you can do a fist and place it on the shoulders and lean. You can do forearms. So this is called your ulnar blade. Place it right there. You're gonna get a little bit of a wider stance because it's lower. And then you're just gonna lean forward. You're bending your knees, bending the knees. Now when you do this, you wanna go slow. Just make sure that you're not putting too much weight on them. And then you can lean to the right, come back to the center and lean to the left. How's that feel, Hank?
Very good.
Good. Not too much pressure?
No, you're good.
Great. Now we're not doing the grabby claws. We're not going to grab up this way. We're just doing that pressing, which is why you notice my thumbs are by the sides of my hand when I do these presses. We're putting our fingers next to each other and we're compressing because we don't want to injure the hand. Your thumb is not that strong, and if you're trying to press into somebody with your thumb, you're gonna hurt your hand. So that's why we're using our body weight, we're leaning, we're bending our knees, and we're using things like forearms, fists, a flat hand with the thumb tucked. All right. So one of the first things that you can do with the neck that's everybody's favorite is you're gonna make a fist that's very gentle. You're gonna put this part, this flat part of your fist against the sides of the neck in that squishy part. If you're not sure where, you can kind of line your thumb up with right behind the ear. If you feel their pulse, you're way too far forward. So up here is where the carotid is. You don't wanna put your hands on their carotid, so you're not in front. You're right on the back, and it should feel comfortable. You're not straining or curling your hands or pushing forward like that. Your hand should just be right next to it. So next to each other, you're gonna just gently put your hands there, and then you're gonna push together and lean back a little bit. And this is a slow movement, so you're not trying to pull and cause friction. You're just letting the tension between your skin and theirs slowly dissipate as you pull back. So the movement is this. You're gonna put your hands on their neck, slowly come together, and then lean back a little bit. So it's a very minor movement. You're not trying to crush them, just a gentle pull. And this is what's called a traction. You're using the friction between your skin and theirs to create a pull backwards. You can use lotion here. This is a good place to use lotion on the back of the neck, especially if someone has a lot of hair or if their skin is really sensitive. This is also going to make you move faster when you try to move, so you have to control your speed. You have to slow yourself down when you tilt backwards. The other one you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hand open, place it on their opposite side of their neck, and you're gonna be doing it at an angle. So I'm not leaning to his exact side. I'm standing behind him a little bit. And then I'm gonna place my hand where it's comfortable. Again, I don't wanna feel that carotid or that heartbeat. I'm just gonna lean a little bit. And you can reposition a little higher right under the ear. You can go a little lower right where the neck meets the shoulder. And you can go even a little lower right where that shoulder is and just grab that meaty part. There's a little soft triangle right in here. The clavicle is in the front, and then you have the soft spot, and then you have that big trapezius. You kind of want to grab in front of that trapezius and that soft spot really gently, and then just lean a little bit. Now I did one side, and you can do it bilaterally. Bilaterally means both sides. You can do the opposite side. But for this video, it may be easier to just see one side or the other. A big thing about this kind of work is that you have to find the body mechanics that work for you. Everybody's body mechanics are going to look a little bit differently. Someone might have to have a wider stance. Someone might have to, stand a little closer or further or at a different angle. But you have to find what works for you, because when you're doing this kind of work, it shouldn't hurt. And that's the thing a lot of people get wrong, is that they try to use their muscles or they try to use their joints in a way that doesn't work really well with those joints. How are you feeling so far, Hank?
Great.
Good. Yeah. All right. And you can do different variations on this. Say that pulling or that pushing doesn't work. You can also put a hand here, again, on that squishy part. His clavicle is sitting behind where my hand is. And then instead of leaning back or pushing forward from the back, you can do it gently from this angle. So in this case, I'm stacking my joints, and then I've got my stance a little wider, and I'm just bending my knee. So it's pushing on that trapezius and on that neck. So by stacking my joints, what I mean is that I'm not bending them and that they're straight. So I'm gonna stand in this angle so you can kind of see the line of my shoulder. My shoulder, my elbow, and my wrists are all in a line. I'm not bending them and trying to push like this. Because if I bend them, I've lost a lot of power. I don't have that same strength. My arm wants to go back, it wants to fold. And then the other thing is with the wrist, if you push your wrist to the point where you're seeing that like folding here, you're going to be straining those muscles and those tendons. The same thing is true if you're pushing it down, if you're pushing it in a way that goes like this. So when you stack them, you want that to be straight as possible. And you will see some bending. That's how hands work a little bit. But it should be like strong. It should feel comfortable. You shouldn't feel like you're straining. You shouldn't see any like pinking or whiting where your skin is being compressed. So you can kind of see from a different angle, though you can't see it from where you're sitting, Hank, that all of that is straight. And you have a little bit of bend. You don't want to go rigid, especially if you are hyperflexible. If you're hyperflexible and you hyperflex your forearm, you're going to end up straining your elbow instead of your wrist. So you want them to all be straight down a line. All right. We're going to sit for the shoulder. The other thing is you can also get a chair that's a different size. I have this rolly chair, which is what I use for my regular massage practice. It changes heights, but for this one, I want to be a little higher than him because it allows me to still lean forward and do those types of things I was doing earlier. So even if you have a partner who isn't able to stand for very long, or say that you don't have the comfort of the height in order to get the right angle, You can adjust that by having them sit on the floor, sit on a lower chair, or having your own chair. So this is another one that's really easy, is I'm just resting my forearm on your shoulder. And I can push towards you, or I can pull away. And in this case, I'm using a lot of my balancing muscles in my hip flexors to kind of balance me back and forth. So it puts a little bit more lower back strain if you're seated and you're trying to do these. You can also roll back towards the back of the shoulder. So my elbow is going from here, it's going along his shoulder blade on that meaty part and then down. So you'll notice my hand is gonna go the opposite. It's gonna come towards me a little bit and then it's gonna go up. And again, I'm slightly behind Hank, so that way I can push, and I'm pushing forward a little bit. This is also a really good way to do a massage seated if your partner doesn't like a lot of pressure, because it takes a lot of your body weight away. So you're not doing the elephant on someone's shoulder if you are a heavy pressure person. One of the other things is you can hook into that shoulder blade and you're kind of gonna sandwich it. Again, you don't wanna do spread out hands. We're not doing this. Your thumbs might sit a little bit further away, but you're gonna grab their shoulder like a sandwich. You can kind of feel that shoulder blade, and it's gonna be that kind of bony protrusion. You wanna grab in the meaty part between the spine and the shoulder. One thing I highly suggest is learning a little anatomy and getting some of that feeling for where things are, those bony landmarks. And then this hand is gonna go right on the pec in the front. So it's right under the clavicle, which is here where that thumb is tracing, because we're not gonna grab the clavicle. You're gonna get that meaty part of the shoulder. And then you can just lean and pull that shoulder. You're kind of scooping forward a little bit. So before I was sitting behind Hank towards here a little bit, now I'm gonna be in front of him a little bit more. So you can pull that shoulder. This is really good if someone has a lot of shoulder tension, a lot of headaches, if you're walking the dog and it pulled a little too hard today. And the other thing is with this hand, you can do little circles. And then this one is just stabilizing so that I don't push him out of the chair. And you'll notice my body moves with it. My arms aren't bending a ton. With this one, you can also walk it down the back depending on how comfortable the chair is for them. So you can have them lean forward a little bit and move your hand down and have them sit back. And now I'm using his body weight, which is sitting against me in the chair, to do that friction and get a hold into his soft tissue. The benefit is I'm not using as much pressure because he can sit back and create as much pressure as little as you want. So I just have my hand back there and I've just got a little bit of a curl in my fingers. I've got it right on that like meaty part of it's called the erector spinaea group, or the other groups that sit over it. I'm right at the base of your trapezius. And then I'm just leaning back a little bit. If you're gonna do this for lower back, you're gonna wanna get a lower chair or a stool. So this one adjusts. So if I drop it down, now I'm at a better angle to get his lower back. So I'm gonna have you sit forward a little bit. I'm gonna bring my hand down to your lower back. You can sit back down. And then I'm just gonna lean a little bit. So if someone has a lot of lower back strain, this is a good way to do it without having to do a lot of work. So I'm just using his body weight to create that pressure. And I'm using my body weight to lean back and create that traction. And then you can just gently uncurl your fingers and slide your hand out. With the shoulder blade, you have a lot of connecting tissue. So this is where your rotator cuff is. A lot of people ask, what is a rotator cuff? A A rotator cuff is essentially all of the muscles that connect into the shoulder. So you have muscles in your arm that connect, and you have muscles in your shoulder. We already talked about the pectoral muscle here comes up. You have your trapezius that comes down the shoulder. You have your deltoid. These are the ones that people commonly know, and you have a bunch of other support muscles that help you move your arm. So the rotator cuff is essentially just the collection of different tendons, muscles, and tissue that creates that movement in the shoulder. There's a lot of little tiny pieces in there. So what you want to do is you just want to be careful of the bony protrusions. So right here, there's like a little ball of bone. We don't want to press directly on that. We don't want to pull directly on that because it's not very comfortable. Now I'm being very gentle. I'm just placing my hand there. But you don't want to like drop an elbow on someone's shoulder in that spot. The same thing is true of the back of the shoulder. There is a bone that lines there. You don't want to drop an elbow on somebody's shoulder in that way either. When it comes to the rotator cuff, you want to be very gentle and very superficial is the word. So you can do things like you can hook into the front of that shoulder and lean back, but you're getting that meaty, squishy part right underneath the bony area. And then you can follow that down the arm. So you can kind of pull down on the front of that deltoid in the bicep area. And you'll notice my fingers are kind of splaying out. I'm going to bring them back together. My thumbs aren't really doing anything. They're just along for the ride. And again, I'm not pulling with my arms. I'm leaning forward a little bit, getting a good grip, and then leaning back. You can do that all the way down the arm. Now, as you get further down, like you just saw, I just pulled his arm off of his leg. That's where your thumbs are allowed to be away from your hand. You just place them gently on the back of the hand, on the back of the arm, and you're gonna bring it back. But what those thumbs do is they just make it so that I don't pull his arm all the way back. It's a little bit of support, but they're not pushing. They're just resting there. And then you can also change the angle. You can pull up a little bit. You can pull down a little bit. You can change to the front, and you can kind of scoop in here. So underneath the arm, you have the axilla. That's that squishy spot in here you need to be careful of. That's where all of your nerves are gonna go through. That's where your blood supply for your arm is going through. So you don't wanna poke somebody really hard in there because it will make their hand feel tingly and it can hurt. And you can cause a nerve impingement if you damage that area. So you want to be really careful with the underarm here. You can get pretty close, but if you have someone's arm, you can just lift it like this, put your hand right there, and then let it fall over your hand. And that's a good way to know where a comfortable spot is. So I'm just like letting his arm rest in mine, and I'm leaning back a little bit. So I'm using his body weight, gravity, to create that pressure instead of pushing into it. And again, I'm placing my thumbs kind of just gently on top. They're just riding along. Or leaning back, pulling. Leaning back and pulling. And you can even scoot your chair back and go down the arm, so into the forearm. This is a nice one because you get that pull in the shoulder and in the elbow. But we're gonna just grab that forearm and lean a little bit. Grab a little lower and lean. Grab a little lower and lean. This video, we're going through it fast, but you can also take your time. Doing a 10 count is a good way to slow yourself down because a lot of people, what they wanna do is they wanna do. And that doesn't feel good and it doesn't look good, right? Because like you kind of fell out of the chair. Mm-hmm. What you're doing here is you can relax your arm, I gotcha. You're just pulling slowly. But that pressure is what feels good. The squeezing isn't the nice part, and the moving fast isn't the nice part. It's that nice, long pressure. And as a partner, it's a good idea to get used to and comfortable with saying, hey, that doesn't feel good. Could you change it up? A note that's important with the shoulder, with the traction we just showed you. When you are pulling on somebody's arm, You have to remember all of those things we just mentioned, all of those attachments in here. The same thing is true of the elbow. The elbow is a joint that's got a bunch of attachments in it, and it is vulnerable. Same thing with the wrist, and the wrist is one of the more dainty ones that we want to be very careful with. When you do a traction, you have to listen to your partner. You want to support things like the forearm, and you want to support the wrist, you want to support the elbow, and you want to support the shoulder. When you do a traction, you want to go very, very slowly, and you want to make sure that that person doesn't have any damage of that tissue or any discomfort when you're pulling, because you can actually end up injuring that muscle tissue or even the tendons. Again, you're pulling on a joint that has a whole bunch of connections that do different jobs. It can feel good, but you can also injure a person easily. So when I pulled on that shoulder, the good way to do it is to support that elbow. So I'm taking a lot of that weight off, even though it's getting a good stretch. And then I'm just leaning back a very, very little bit.
As a person getting worked on, how do I know the difference between discomfort from, oh, my muscles are tight and I haven't had a massage in a while, and, oh, that's not right?
That's a good question. If you're not sure, always stop a little sooner than you think. One of the things that I tell people is it should feel like a good stretch, but once it stops feeling like a good stretch, it's too much. So if you think about going to the gym and you do, a stretch that feels really good, you get that like kind of feeling when you do the stretch, and it's got that like warm feeling, but it's not hurting. That's where you want to be. Once it starts feeling a little bit questionable, if you're holding your breath, if you're tightening up, that's a good sign that it's a little too much. If it hurts, if you're getting a pain signal, it's a little too much and you need to back out. So that's why I say go slow, because it's very easy to jump over the line from that feels good to, oh, that hurts. And it takes the brain a second to notice. So why we go slow is so that your brain can kind of catch up and you can say, hey, by the way, that's a little too much before it gets injured. Because there is the good stretch, there's, oh, that's a little much, and then there's, I got injured real fast.
Yeah.
So we want to keep people on the, oh, that's a good stretch side of everything. Yeah, and again, like I said, you want to support those kinds of joints because those are the easiest places to injure somebody in that area where you've got a lot of connections. Because in the meat, in the arm, in any large major group of muscles, you can pull back against me pretty easily. Or you can, feel it, and like me pressing into your forearm, it doesn't hurt as me like pressing into a squishy spot, right? Like I'm using actual pressure here and you're like, oh, that's okay. And then if I do like soft presses here, it's like, that doesn't feel great. So that's why we're very careful about spots like that, is because as tough as humans are, it's also easy to injure us. All right, this one is also one of my favorites. With the shoulder, I'm gonna have you relax your arm. So I'm going to bring my hand up underneath the forearm, or up underneath his upper arm. And I'm just gonna pull. So you could do it from standing or sitting. And then from sitting, you need to get a good spot where you're about the height of the person sitting. Oh gosh, this is lost. There we go. You want to get a good height from where the person is sitting. I'm going to wrap my arm under his and around the shoulder. I'm just going to hook in and lean. How's that feel?
That's good.
And your arm supported? There you go. So I've got a good hook into his shoulder. I've got that rotator cuff in my hand. I've got his forearm leaning against mine, and his elbow is supported. Now you've got a little bit more of a curve to your arm in this position. Like I was saying, you don't want to have your wrist like that. You're not curling, but you are kind of curving like that. You're doing a little cup. Little cup. And you can stabilize with your hand behind the arm too. All right. You can get into the forearm. The forearm is great, especially for anybody who's in tech, who's working a lot with their hands. Hank does woodwork, so he definitely needs some forearm work. This is also a spot where some lotion is helpful. So a lot of this can be done without lotion. In this case, especially if you're working on a guy who has a lot of arm hair, you're gonna want some lotion just to make sure that you're not pulling on that arm hair. So I'm gonna put your arm down and grab that from my desk. There's a lot of different brands of lotion out there. I highly suggest getting a professional massage lotion just because there's a lot of junk out there and you can cause a lot of allergic reactions if you're buying off-brand market stuff that you don't know what's in it. You definitely don't want to buy things from product lines that are meant for in the bedroom. The reason why is because they often have sugars and glycerins that dry out the skin and get tacky. And with massage, you're doing a lot of compression and you're doing a lot of friction. These are designed for that. These lotions are actually built to withstand some friction and heat, as well as like staying smooth and not tacky for longer. If you're using, say, like passion lotions that are meant for in the bedroom, you're gonna get this like sticky tackiness, and it's gonna end up actually causing more friction than you would have originally had you not used any lotion at all. So the greatest thing you can do is there's actually a website for massage therapists that's open to anybody to buy from. It's called Massage Warehouse. You can go there, you can look at the brands that they have, some of the big ones, and this is not sponsored at all. I use Bon Vital just because I like their heavy cream and it can still go through a pump bottle. And then there's other lotion brands that are really good quality. They're meant for this kind of work, and they come from everything like, I use the hypoallergenic, but they have hypoallergenic, they have scented ones, and then they have a bunch of different ones from gels to creams to lotions. The difference is a gel is usually more, if you think like aloe vera texture. A lotion is more watery, it's soft. You can put it through a pump bottle, it's closer to the consistency of soap. And then a cream is usually heavier. It's like the consistency of like hard or soft butter. It's got a little bit more of a stand up. I can still pump some of them through a bottle, but not all of them can go through a bottle. But you can play with a couple different varieties. And the cool thing about the different brands, especially things like Bon Vital, is you can just call them up and say, hey, could I get a sampler pack? And they will send you a sampler pack of all of their lines. So it's like, it's a great way to go. But yeah, get a massage lotion that is intended for massage. So I'm just using a little bit. I don't need a whole ton of it on his arm. I'm also gonna sit and I'm gonna cross my leg because I find that this is comfortable, and I'm gonna bring his arm and put it on my knee. So I just spread this lotion on his arm. You're gonna go slow and make sure that you have enough friction to grab, but enough that you're not pulling on hair. And this is also a good spot for partners to give feedback. If you feel like your hair is being pulled, let me know. And in this, I'm just using a broad hand. I'm putting it there, and then I'm just like leaning back a little bit and pulling towards me. So sometimes you do use your arms, but this is just gentle because I'm not using pressure with my arms. I'm not trying to push or pull. I'm just using it to spread some lotion. All right. So in this position, it can be a little awkward for some people depending on your body type and your shape, but you can do things like you can lean a forearm on the forearm, and I'm supporting his hand and his wrist against my knee, and I'm just leaning a little bit right in that meaty part. And if their arm keeps bending and like wilting away from you, you can also switch and put your knee underneath that part that you're gonna lean on, because then they can't go anywhere. And in this case, instead of leaning back towards his forearm, I'm leaning forward. So I'm just rolling it gently, but I'm staying on the meaty part. So in the arm, you do still have bones that you wanna land on or not land on with your arm. Most of it is right along this outside, so this side of the arm. And that's what I'm using on my arm to press, which is that ulnar blade. But I'm rolling a little bit forward onto the meaty part of my arm. So I'm hooking, and then I'm rolling a little bit. My hand is just relaxing. If you notice you're doing this, if your like hand is really, really rigid, or you're like squeezing your arm, you're using your muscle tissue, and you need to like kind of shake it out, let go.
And that was too much pressure just now when you were.
Yeah. Because I went rigid, yeah. So you can kind of feel the difference between using body weight is more smooth and subtle movement than if I'm trying to use my muscle pressure and push on you. You can roll down the forearm. And I'm just doing it very gently. I'm not doing a ton of pressure. You can also do like squeezes, so you can put your hands together like a paddle and just squeeze. So this is that motion. And the other thing is when I do that, my fingers are supporting and I'm rolling forward. So I'm actually pushing with the palm of my hand. I'm not using my fingertips to push. I'm just stabilizing. You can roll their arm over. And you're going to use a loose fist. You can just press and go up. You're going to get that meaty part. You notice I'm going very slow. And right into the elbow, gently. And again, you're going to start right above the wrist. You're going to get your knuckles right here, right into that softer area right there. My hand is supporting. You can support from behind or from in front of the arm. And just going up the arm. This is why you only want like a pea-sized amount of lotion, especially if you're using like a cream or something, because part of the thing that helps you slow down is friction. If I had done that faster, would it have hurt?
Yes.
Yeah, because you could feel that friction. You could feel me pulling the skin with it. So one of the things is if you have a ton of lotion on there, if it's a slip and slide up their arm, your hand's gonna go whoop, right off. So using a little bit of lotion, if you use too much, you just get a paper towel and blot. And that will fix it. So with this one, I'm using the palm of my hand here. I'm resting it on his arm, and I am kind of doing a C shape just to stabilize, and I'm just leaning forward while I'm holding the wrist gently. So like you can also just compress their hand. So I opened his hand, so I kind of slid back, and I'm holding it to my hip or my thigh, and I'm just leaning forward with my other arm. And again, you'll notice that my shoulder, my elbow, and my wrist are stacked. My hand is straight. My wrist isn't bent back. I'm not sitting over him like this. I'm sitting back a little bit. I get a good hook, and I'll lean forward. So you can kind of see that straight arm action again. We're going real slow. Now, the reason why I sit this way is just because it's comfortable. But if you didn't want to sit that way, you could also just support and lean. You could use this hand to support it without the knee. It just means that you can't use as much pressure. You can also do it standing, where you're going to be holding their arm up a little bit higher, and then you're going to lean forward. You're going to bend that knee. See that left knee is bending. I'm kind of pushing his arm down, and you'll see that it bends and it pulls his shoulder. But in this case, again, if someone has sensitivities in the shoulder or the elbow, it can actually hurt them if you're hyperextending it. So you got to be real careful with that, and you got to make sure that you're not rotating their arm like that and then pushing, because elbows don't bend that way. So in this case, I was moving it so his arm is open, can bend that way. So if I bent it, it would go towards his face, and that's when I'd push. Yeah. One other way you can do the arm without using your hip or your leg is you're going to do essentially a forearm grab. So I'm grabbing the back of your elbow. I'm going to rest your hand on it, and I can move your hand that way, or I can rotate it up a little bit, but it depends on which side of the arm I'm working on and how comfortable you are. Sometimes I might have to come to the front of you to work on it like that, but you can also usually work on someone from the side here. So this is another traction kind of point where you can grab those different joints and you can lean a little bit. But again, because I have this arm, it's not going to go anywhere. Our forearms don't bend as easy. I have them interlocked. I can do that pressure there. I can use my other forearm against my forearm. So in this case, the movement that's happening with my arms is I'm supporting and I'm just rotating. So I'm doing a push. And sometimes you might wing out your forearm a little bit, or you might wing out your shoulder a little bit to get that movement. But the answer is this arm is supporting, and you can do a pull and a push at the same time, or you can just rotate your body against the other person's weight. So, and I'll show you what that is. I'm grabbing right behind that elbow. So if you're not sure where to grab, just bend the arm, get that spot, and then relax their arm into it. Then you can take this one, the ulnar blade again, right above the wrist, and then just lean forward a little bit and rotate a little bit. And again, like, because your arms don't bend in the middle of a bone as easily, this interlock is really easy to do. It doesn't hurt because your whole arm is supported. Now with this one, you can do a U shape. So this one, your thumb is going to be part of it, but again, you're just gonna relax it. We've got control of that forearm, so we can push into the person. So I'm just leaning forward and I'm supporting the arm. And then I'm gonna relax and move and lean forward again. So again, I'm not pincering his arm, I'm not squeezing or using the grabby claw. I'm just relaxing my hand in a U shape and leaning forward. You can do that all the way down the arm. And if you find that that like direction isn't great, you can switch it. You can do the U shape this way and pull, but you lose a lot of your weight because you're not putting it behind your body. You can rotate around the person into this direction. And again, you're supporting the weight of the arm and just pushing against. And the reason why I let go of the elbow and slid down the arm is so that I have enough pressure and enough space in front of me to push. Because otherwise, if I'm up close here, I've lost all my ability to push because I'm already on his arm. With the wrist, you can do a nice little traction. This is just gentle. I'm pretty much just holding his arm and leaning a little bit. But I'm supporting the wrist right there. So I've got some of the upper arm and some of the hand. I'm just leaning gently. And that feels good. And you can also just roll your hands. So I'm gonna rotate your arm just a little bit to show what that looked like. So I'm just rotating forward and rolling. I'm doing a little bit of a grab here and then pulling and doing a little bit of a grab with the other hand. And so on the front, it looks like I'm going left and right, but you're kind of grabbing and rotating. Okay. Now, if these are uncomfortable, another thing you could do is have someone sitting at a dining room table and you can put their arm on that table to adjust for it. So if you have someone's arm on a table, it's a lot easier because you don't have to have a support arm holding it. Now we're gonna do a little bit of the hand. With the hand, your thumbs are gonna press a little bit more, but we want to use your grip more than we want to use the thumbs pressing. So with the hand, one of the things you can do is, again, if you have your knee, you can use your hand to press. So I'm using the palm of my hand and I'm pressing. And I'm going across his hand very gently. You want to kind of hook your thumbs, the meaty part of your thumb right here into the meaty part of their thumb right there, and just lean. And then you want to squish that meaty part right at the base of the thumb. So that's one of the ones that does a lot of work. And here's where you can use your grabby claws. So it may not work very well for very long, but you're going to squeeze and pull out. So you're kind of like interlocking your hand. You're gonna relax your hand on it, or you can curl your fingers and use that joint there. So I'll rotate you a little bit. And then you're going to just lean away. So I'm gonna fold your arm and show it to the camera one more way, which is I'm gonna come to the side. So my thumb is on the back of his hand right there. And then on the inside, I usually curl my hand. So I'm doing a pincer in that way. I'm just gonna interlock again, get comfortable. So you see I'm gripping the back of the hand, and then you're gonna pull. You could even just use gravity where I'm just standing straight and I'm pushing his hand down a little bit. But seated, it's a little easier to also just rotate. So I've got your arm right there. I can just rotate a little bit and lean back. Then the other way is you can pincer this way. You're gonna grab that meaty bit and then you're gonna pull away from the hand. So you're pulling perpendicular to the thumb bone. Again, you want that good stretch, not that painful stretch. You can also do with your fingertips, you're gonna do what's called a circular friction, which is a very small movement. You're just gonna squeeze and rotate your hands in a circle. Doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise, it's up to you. Little circles. And that thumb is just supporting his hand so it doesn't fall in while I'm working on it. But little circles. You can also wrap your hand around their fingers, or you can do it where you're holding it like a gripper. And you're just gonna wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. You're gonna go over their fingers. Because while fingers are mostly tendon, so you can kind of see that's the wiggle version. And then if you were to grasp, you'd kind of be doing like this kind of motion up. So open, close, open, close, open, close. Now that can tire out your hand, which is why I suggest like the gripper claw instead. Mm-hmm. But this is a very small movement. And what it does is it allows me to kind of compress, relax and move, compress, relax and move, compress, kind of like we did with the upper arm. And you can do that with each of the fingers is compress, compress, compress. Press, compress. Now, if someone has arthritis or something like that, you want to be very careful with this. You can hurt them because those are the joints that are often most affected by arthritis. But what you want to do is you can be gentler. You can just use your 2 pointer fingers and your thumb, and you can just gently roll in between on the bones, not the joints. You just want to be very gentle. You're just moving the skin. That's it. You're not trying to compress and like squish the bone and the muscle and everything. You're just gently rolling the skin over the bone. And that takes a little technique. It takes a little time to kind of feel it. And your brain's going to someday go, aha, I get it. It's going to make sense once you start getting a feel for how things feel when you're working. But you're just rolling very gently. You're kind of like twisting your hand a little bit, but it's a very small movement. So I'll do it again. So you're just thumb, pointer finger, and you're just rolling the skin a little bit. Now the other thing you can do is you can do it's called breaking the hand, but you don't want to actually break it. You're gonna grab so that your fingers are on the bottom in the meaty part of the hand, and your thumbs are along the top, and you're gonna kind of roll your hands out. So you're just gently rolling out. And what it does is it spreads the fingers and it spreads the thumb. And then you can do the opposite where you get a good grip and you roll in. So you're pulling your thumbs away from each other. And again, you want to make sure you're not causing friction burn with the skin. You can use a little lotion here, or just be gentle and slow and slide over the skin. So the other one, the movement was you're holding like this and you're rolling away from the inside. And the top one was you're holding like this and you're rolling out from the inside. You're kind of curling the hand in. One of my favorite ways to do the hand work as well is to interlace my fingers. You can actually do your fingers like that. Here, hold on. Let me see if I can get it right. Yeah. All right. So one of the ways to do the hand that is helpful is you can interlace your fingers. So you'll see that my pinky goes between his pointer and my ring finger is going between his pointer and his thumb. And I'm just going to relax it there. And then my other pinky is going to go through the next two fingers like that. It's going to leave his middle finger kind of pushed up a little bit. What this does is it gives me the ability to just lay my hands back a little bit, and it spreads your fingers. It gives you a little bit of stretch. I'm not pushing. I'm just holding. And then the other thing you can do is you can do little frictions with your thumb here. So I'm using my other 2 fingers to kind of grip his hand, and then my thumbs to push a little bit. And because I've already got his hand at extension, it only needs a tiny amount of pressure. I'm not even pushing very hard with the thumbs to feel good.
I feel that.
Yeah. So if someone is at extension, if you're pushing any of their joints open or you're extending the muscle, you're pulling on it, and you put pressure on it, you need significantly less pressure to get the same effect. Because what you're already doing is you're pulling on that tendon, and then that pressure is putting more pressure on that tendon. So when you're just pressing and someone is at relaxation, you can press quite a lot into that tissue because it's soft, it's malleable, it's not at extension. It's easy to move and pull because it's got a lot of movement available to it. Like it can be stretched out of the way essentially. If you have someone at extension, just like if you think of a rubber band or a bungee cord, there's nowhere else for it to go. So when you push, you're adding more pressure to that system. You know, you can do a lot less effort with a lot more result. Now that's something you kind of have to balance, and again, this is where your partner's feedback is really important. If they say, oh, that doesn't feel good, you got to stop and back out. Maybe don't do the extension and the pressure at the same time, kind of figure out why it didn't feel good and try a couple different approaches before you give up on that movement. And there will be some things that people don't like and some things that people really love that you wouldn't think of. One of my favorite things was in one of my classes that I had a couple who came up to me and they said, you know, the biggest thing I took away wasn't any of the body mechanics, it's the fact that we like different things. I was like, tell me more. And they said one of them, she thought that the other person was a bad therapist because they always tried to put an elbow through her, like right through her into the floor. Hated it. They wanted to be like rubbed and lotioned. And the other partner, they wanted to be, you know, with an elbow through them in the floor, and that's what they did. So they both treated each other the way they wanted to be treated, but they didn't realize that they both wanted something completely different from the other person. And that's why they thought each other were bad at massage, even though they were giving good massage just to the wrong person. So you kind of have to listen to your partner, figure out what they like, figure out what they don't like, and then adjust from there. It might be that someone really likes that hand extension with a deep thumb in the middle. And it might be that the other person hates the hand extension. And if you did it to the wrong person, like it just wouldn't turn out very well. But that's one of the things that we can kind of take away from that fun experience. That was one of my classes in North Carolina that taught me that. So I really like that one. For the leg work, we shifted everything down, but I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can work on the calves and the legs. Let me move those papers out of the way. So I shorten my chair, and you can use it to either sit on like you were before. You can also use it or a stool to kneel a little bit. But what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna move your hand down and we're just gonna do top of the leg compressions. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to do squats, you can also just do a really, really wide squat. I am not that person. I can do it, I just don't want to. So we're gonna use a chair and we're gonna do that gentle fist again. This quad muscle right here is the big heavy muscle that we're gonna compress. And then we're gonna press mostly down and a little bit in towards the center. And again, that thumb isn't doing anything. That thumb is just along for the ride. You can do both hands because that muscle is pretty big and you can go in. This muscle is the one that tends to get people to say it tickles and hurts at the same time. So you wanna be very gentle with it. And you can walk up and down. So that means like pressing on the left hand, raising the right hand and moving it over, pressing on the right hand, lifting the left hand and moving it. We're just going down towards the knee. And this is just gentle. You can also do the side of the leg. This is the IT band. It's really good for runners, people who drive a lot, anybody who's sitting in the office. It can also be really tender, so be gentle. With this, your IT band is a little bit more tendinous. It doesn't have as much flexibility. You don't want to push super hard on it. And the other thing is you're stopping above the knee, so right about where his shorts end, because you don't want to press on the bony part of the knee, as well as the fact that the knee has stabilizing tendons. If you push from the inside or outside, you can hurt somebody easily there. You can also, if they're comfortable with it, putting your hand on the inside of their thigh and pulling towards you. That one is a very gentle one. Those are called your adductors. You can also have them bring your leg up the way I had before as a four, Hank. So I want you to bring it that way. You're going to support their knee. You can either support it with your knee, a pillow, your hand, and then you can press on those adductors as well. So that brings those into flexion. And what it does is, because I'm supporting it and he's not extending those muscles like energy to hold his leg in place, they're soft and they're not going to be at extension. So I can press on them without hurting. And I'm just supporting his knee with my hand here. This hand is not doing work. How's that feel?
Very good.
This is great for desk workers. Anybody who's working at a desk a lot will have really tight adductors, as well as anybody who drives a lot, because these are the muscles you use to bring your legs in. All right, so you can bring that leg down. That one's a pretty simple one. There's not a lot of alternatives to working on the thigh, just because it is kind of an awkward spot shape-wise and where we're sitting. But you can kind of figure out on the floor, there's a lot more options on how to press on the thigh. Those are just kind of the front of the leg, the adductors, and the IT band that are great to work with. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this chair and we're gonna work on the calf, which is another great spot to work on. Okay. So, with the calf, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stabilize his leg. I'm gonna take his leg, and I have my legs folded, so I have a little spot right here that's easy to sit his foot right in. So right there, and I'm gonna lean forward a little bit. I'm gonna scoot in so that his leg doesn't go anywhere. So when I press, does it feel stable? It's kind of in that little niche in my leg. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna lean forward, or just placing our hands on the front of the calf and the leg on the shin. Or just doing little compressions. Again, those thumbs are just along for the ride. I'm really pressing with right here. This one's a fun one. We're gonna lock our fingers interlocked like that behind the leg. And his leg is pretty solidly in the side of mine. Or at the back of the leg, right below where that soft squishy spot is. You don't wanna go right on it, just right below. Interlock your fingers. And then find a good comfy spot where your whole hand is touching the leg, and then lean a little bit. And if their foot is in the right place, you'll feel pressure on your inner thigh or in your knee joint where you put their heel. And that's gonna keep their leg from kicking out and going flying into your face. So, and if you're not certain you're in the right spot, just readjust it and lean forward, like push your hip into it, and it should stay in the right spot. So again, interlock in the back. Make sure your hands have a good solid touch, and then pull. And then you're gonna relax, and you're gonna scoot down and do it again. Relax, scoot down, make sure you have good contact, and pull again. You can do this all the way down to the heel. Now, as you get closer to the heel, your hands are gonna wrap further around in the front. So you wanna just relax your hands so that mostly the connection is on the back. And in this point, when you get to the heel, you're gonna be lifting them out of your knee. So you can kind of adjust again. And in this case, I'm just leaning so that my forearm is on his foot, and I'm leaning back a little bit so that way I've got that grip where my hand is on the back, my forearm is on the foot. And I've still got a little traction, but I'm supporting them. All right. Now the other thing we're gonna do is start again, opposite. So hands are gonna interlace behind. I'm gonna get a good contact where my whole hand is touching. And then we're gonna do what we did when we first started with the neck. We're gonna squeeze and push forward though. So I'm gonna push forward towards Hank while I'm squeezing. And what that does is it's got that traction, so I didn't put any lotion on his leg. When I squeeze and push forward, what I'm doing is I'm pulling that muscle backwards away from the bone. I'm stretching it, and I'm also stretching the fascia in the front of the shin. So I'm pulling the skin here, and I'm pulling the muscle back here. So you're gonna interlock, get some good contact, and then push. So you're pushing interlock, contact, squeeze together, push. And you're pushing with your body weight. You notice my shoulders and my whole front come forward. So you can do that all the way down. I'm gonna give you a quick demo of what that would look like. If you did it very slow, you'd be doing it right. If you're going the speed of this video, you need to slow down because it's not gonna feel great. And then once we get to the heel, the contact changes. So remember how I said your hands tend to wrap around all the way around the ankle on some people? You want this meaty part of your hand to be in contact with the back of the heel. So you can interlock your fingers further, or you can just put your hands next to each other like a prayer clasp. So you can either do the interlock all the way or like the prayer hand clasp. But on the back, I'm gonna do the interlock, and then I'm gonna put that meaty part of my thumb right there, right on the back of the heel. I'm gonna squeeze, and then I'm gonna lean forward just a little bit. How's that feel?
Feels great.
Yeah. So what I'm feeling is I feel that tendon. It's kind of like a guitar string. That's what you want to feel. And right in front of where my hand is, right here, I can feel the bone of his ankle. You do not want to crush on the bone because it's bone, it hurts, it's hard. It's not compressible. You want to go right behind that bone. So right where your wrist is should be a little bump that's touching you. That is that heel bone. Now with this one, I'm pushing down towards the floor a little bit too, just because of the angle that I'm at. And I'm pushing into my leg because my leg is there. If my leg was bothering me, I could move my leg out of the way, and I'm still supporting his with my, back of my knee. But I can unwind my leg a little bit so it's out of the way and I'm not pushing into it, and I have that space to go down. You can also switch, and this depends on your body mechanics. This does give rotation to the lower back, so I don't suggest it, but you can switch so that he's pushing into your thigh from the outside and do that compression. But again, you're twisting your body, so it may not be as comfortable. But if it works, it works. And sometimes you can do it one-handed where you're gripping. So you're doing not the claw, you're not doing claws, but you can do a compression here and then you're pushing. So you get the back of the heel, you get a good grasp, you just kind of lean. And then again, here I'm supporting his foot too. But you want to try as much as possible not to do rotation of your spine and awkward positioning. Now with this one, it is easy to lean, so I can just do the grab with the one hand instead of interlocking my hands, and I can lean away. But you may want to get a better angle coming directly in front of them and leaning this way. So see what feels good, see what works for you. You can also do the C shape on the front. You want to be very careful though, because there is the bone. So you don't want to put your hand directly on that bone and push the bone. I'm kind of pushing off to the side so that thumb isn't really doing as much. All of these are a matter of body mechanics and how you feel the most comfortable. So again, you have crossing your legs. You're going to put it on your inner thigh and underneath of your knee. Scoot in so that it's in a nice spot. You should see their leg lift just a little bit as you do that. You got the interlock. You're going to go there and you're going to pull. You have the interlock, squeeze, and push. You have the further interlock, squeeze, and push in the right spot right behind that ankle bone. You have the compressions on the front that you can do. You can press on the sides. And you can also take this ankle. Once you get down to it, you're going to grip the foot and make sure that the person is okay with having their foot touch. Some people might be sensitive or tender. You can grip like the heavy part of the foot. So right underneath the toes, his toes are up here, I'm right beneath them. You can roll that foot in and out. You can bring it down and point it, push it up. But you're supporting most of the foot. You don't want to do it with the toes. You don't want to break someone's toes back. You can relax your foot. So you can roll it in circles. A lot of people don't have a lot of motion here, so you're not forcing anything. You're just supporting with one hand and rotating with the other. And then you can treat a foot kind of like an elongated hand with short fingers. You're going to do that same grip where you got the fingers on the bottom. You got the thumbs resting along the top right underneath the ankle. And you can just compress down. So again, you're doing that rolling down motion where you're it's called breaking the hand or the foot. You can kind of do the same thing. And with this one, you can even lean into it and use your hands against your knee or your leg to create that pressure. And then you can do the opposite where you're pulling up, you're rolling in towards the center. And these are minor movements. I'm exaggerating them in front of the camera so you can kind of get an idea for the movement. You can push on in between each of the tarsals. So you feel the bones right before the toes. You can press in between them very gently. You can kind of rotate, do that little rotation there right before the toes. Kind of move that. You can grab into the arch here. That one is going to be either sensitive on people or feel amazing. And you're just going to squeeze and kind of lean back a little bit. So I'm doing kind of a scoop and then I'm leaning this way. So I'm scooping it away from them. And I'm moving down. So I move from the heel to the toes. You can move the opposite way. And socks help because they reduce the friction. I can push and pull on the sock without, having to use lotion, but you can also take the sock off and use no lotion. You can scoop it where you're putting their heel in your hand and kind of doing those rotations again, pushing and pulling. And then your left hand is supporting, kind of rotating. And then you can also do the same traction that we did for that heel back here on that Achilles tendon. You can do that right on the heel here. You're going to squish the kind of meaty parts on the side and you're going to roll. So with this, because it's the bottom of the foot, the action is interlocking and then you're going to roll a little bit. So you're pushing down and I'll show you what that looks like again. So we're kind of interlocking. I'm grabbing that meaty side of the bottom of the foot. I'm kind of just leaning forward and rolling my hands back up along the heel. And you can just compress into the heel from the bottom too. You can press up along here. This takes more effort because you are using your strength to push up against gravity. But I'm also pushing forward towards him, so you'll notice like his foot goes down when I do this. When you get to the toes, you don't want to push the toes themselves, but you can compress them. You can also, if they're not wearing socks, you can do kind of like the finger roll that we taught you earlier. You can do it over socks, but you can kind of lose a little bit of that feeling in which one you're on when you got socks on. You can kind of roll the toes a little bit, very gently. You can just do squeezes. All right, and that's the calf and the foot. You can also press it down. So if they're at a spot where their leg is at relaxation and their foot is on the floor, you can also just press down a little bit. And you want to do this gently because if someone has an arch like Hank does right here where I can slip my hand under it, I don't want to just put my weight on his foot. Anybody who has a child knows that's not fun. But I'm supporting the foot and then I'm just like leaning a little bit forward. And I'm just kind of letting my hand slide across the top of his foot. Yeah. All right. How do you feel?
I feel great.
A little lopsided because we only did your right side?
A little bit, maybe.
Yeah, when you have a partner and you're working on them, you want to do both sides a little bit. You should do a technique. If you're going to do, say, like the back of the leg pulls, you should do them on one side, do them on the other, and then change your technique and do it on one side again. Because otherwise, you're going to get tired halfway through and you're going to be like, I don't want to do the other leg. And then they're going to walk around being like, man, my left leg feels great, my right leg not so much. But yeah, so you want to switch back and forth while you're working on them. All right? So that was a seated massage. And we will do floor massage next. What is massage therapy and why would somebody go to a massage therapist? I specialize in medical and sports massage, which means that I deal with people who have chronic pain, who are recovering from injuries, people who are stressing their body on a regular basis and doing things like heavy lifting, bicycling, or competing. So I work with people who have chronic pain, people who need to take care of their body in order to keep moving. Also people like iron workers who are very hard on their body and need that work to reduce the stress and the tension so that they don't get injured. So for me, somebody can come to me if they're looking for somebody to take care of them and help them with their health and wellness overall, to keep them moving and working without causing an injury, as well as to heal from any injuries. But overall, massage is really good to get your body out of the fight or flight response, to kind of get you to relax and let go of that tension or stress, which a lot of us will hold in our body and our tension. So massage can be really helpful in helping you monitor your health, as well as to recover from injury, and also to get you out of that fight or flight mode and back into a healthy regulatory system. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that it was helpful and that you learned some wonderful new skills about chair massage today. I hope that you stay tuned for the second part, which is going to be massage on the floor. And if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, or sign up to our newsletter on our website. And also show a little support for our editor and filming help, which was hankart.com. And he also has a YouTube channel where he does woodwork, so show him a little appreciation and love as well.